Governor Huntsman.
Diane, you hit right on it, and that is, what is the vision for getting this country moving? We all have records. Those of us who are governors, very specific job creation record. I delivered a flat tax in my state. We became the top job creator in the country. You can look at what Mitt did in Massachusetts. He was number 47. But more to the point, I went to Lindy's Diner in Keene and had a conversation with a guy named Jamie, who has a small motorcycle repair shop. And he said when he grew up in Keene, it was bustling with activity. He said he had 30 different jobs growing up. He said there were 4 machine tool operations in that town. He said, I remember the excitement, the enthusiasm, and all of the opportunity. And we had this conversation. I said, you know what? We are once again on the cusp of a manufacturing renaissance in this country if we do it right. China is going down in terms of GDP growth from 8, 9, 10% to 4, 5, 6%. And as they go down in growth, unemployment goes up. We have an opportunity to win back that manufacturing investment. If we are smart enough with the right kind of leadership to fix our taxes, no one up here is calling for the complete elimination of all the loopholes and the deductions. Where the Wall Street Journal came out and endorsed my tax plan, that's what needs to be done, not tinkering around the edges. If we can fix our taxes, if we can move toward a friendlier regulatory environment, this country can get back in the game again. We can rebuild our manufacturing muscle, and we can rebuild some of the job training opportunities that we have lost over recent years.
Governor Romney, why not close all the loopholes, as Governor Huntsman is saying?
George, let me step back from that. I know you want to ask that question. Nothing wrong with it. And I don't want to be critical of the questions that you ask and the other interviewers ask. But I think the real issue is the vision for this country. And I think people have to recognize that what's at stake in this election is jobs, yes, and balancing the budget, yes, and dealing with our extraordinary overhang from our entitlements. We have to make sure they're preserved, our entitlements, that is, that we don't kill the future of the country. We got a lot of issues we talk about. But really, this election is about the soul of America. The question is, what is America going to be? And we have in Washington today a president who has put America on a road to decline, militarily, internationally, and domestically. He's making us into something we wouldn't recognize. We're increasingly becoming like Europe. Europe isn't working in Europe. It'll never work here. The right course for America is to return to the principles that were written down in those first words in the Declaration of Independence. We were endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We have the right in this country to pursue happiness as we choose. And as people pursue education and work hard and take risk and build enterprises of all kinds, they lift themselves and don't make us poorer, they make us better off. The question is, are we going to remain an exceptional nation, a unique nation in the history of the earth? That's what's at stake in this election. We have a president that does not understand in his heart, in his bones, the nature of American entrepreneurialism, innovation, and work. And that is something which we're fighting for in this election. I hope the people on the stage share that vision. But we must return America to the principles upon which it was founded if we're ever going to have a strong balance sheet, a strong income statement, create jobs, but have a bright future for our kids.
Speaker Gingrich, you just heard Governor Romney make his case. You've made the case on several occasions that he's not the man to carry that message for the Republican Party. Why not?
Well, look, I think that's a good message, and I agree with him. A little bit harsh on President Obama, who I'm sure in his desperate efforts to create a radical European socialist model is sincere. But, you know, I think the Wall Street Journal captured it the other day in their dialogue when their editorial board met, and they said, I had a very aggressive pro-jobs program, 0 capital gains, 12.5% corporate tax rate, 100% expensing for all new equipment to dramatically modernize the system, abolish the death tax. And they said that, by contrast, this is their words, not mine, that Governor Romney's program was timid and more like Obama. Now, I would think those are fighting words, and frankly, if he wants to fight with the Wall Street Journal on that, I wouldn't blame him. But I do think there's a difference between a bold Reagan conservative model and a more establishment model that is a little more cautious about taking the kind of changes we need.
And Josh?
Well, Senator Santorum, you just heard from both people on either side of you. Enough substance there for you?
Well, look, I like the vision. As far as substance, I agree with Speaker Gingrich. I don't think Governor Romney's plan is particularly bold or is particularly focused on where the problems are in this country. And the governor used a term earlier that I shrink from, and it's one that I don't think we should be using as Republicans: middle class. There are no classes in America. We are a country that don't allow for titles. We don't put people in classes. There may be middle-income people. But the idea somehow or another we're going to buy into the class warfare arguments of Barack Obama is something that should not be part of the Republican lexicon. That's their job. Divide, separate, put one group against another. That's not the language that I'll use as president. I'll use the language of bringing people together. And I'll also be able to show you that unlike some of the folks up here, that we have a consistent record of being the person to contrast ourselves on health care, for example. We're looking for someone who can win this race. Who can win this race on the economy and on the core issues of this election. And I was not ever for an individual mandate. I wasn't for a top-down government-run health care system. I wasn't for the big bank or Wall Street bailout, as Governor Romney was. And I stood firm on those and worked actually in the coalfields, if you will, against this idea that we needed a cap-and-trade program. So if you want someone that's a clear contrast, that has a strong record, has a vision for this country that's going to get this country growing, and appeal to blue-collar workers in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Michigan and Indiana, and deliver that message that we care about you too, not just about Wall Street and bailing them out, then I'm the guy that you want to put in the nomination.
Governor Romney?
My plan is a lot broader than just tax policy. The tax policy I've described is entitled to help people in this country that desperately need help right now. But there's more to it than that. We have to open up markets for America's goods. As the most productive people in the world, more output per person from an American than anywhere else in the world, we have to open up markets for our goods. We haven't done that under this president. European nations and China over the last 3 years have opened up 44 different trade relationships with various nations in the world. This president's opened up none. We have to open up trade. We have to take advantage of our extraordinary energy resources. At the same time, we're going to have to do something about the regulations in this country. As a party, sometimes we talk about deregulation. What we're really shorthanding is that we want to change old regulations that are crushing enterprise and put in place those that encourage enterprise. I understand how the economy works because I've lived in it. There are a lot of guys who spent their life in Washington have a very valid and important experience, but they have not been on the front line competing with businesses around the world. I have. I know what regulations kill and which regulations help enterprise. And I want to use that expertise to get America working again. And I'll come back to the point I made at the beginning. This is bigger than that issue. This is really an issue, a campaign about the direction of this country. This is a choice. And by the way, if we don't make the right choice this time, we may not be able to for a very, very long time. This is a critical time in the history of this country.
Governor Huntsman, vision for dealing with China, competing around the world.
Listen, we have the most important relationship of the 21st century with China. We've got to make it work. Of course we have challenges with them. We've had challenges for 40 years. It's nonsense to think you can slap a tariff on China the first day that you're in office, as Governor Romney would like to do. You've got to sit down and sort through the issues of trade like you do with North Korea, like you do with Iran, like you do with Burma and Pakistan and the South China Sea. They're all interrelated. And to have a president who actually understands how that relationship works would serve the interests of the people of this country from an economic standpoint and from a security standpoint.
I'm sorry. Governor, you were, in the last 2 years, implementing the policies of this administration in China. The rest of us on the stage, we're doing our best to get Republicans elected across the country and stop the policies of this president being put forward. My own view on the relationship with China is this, which is that China is stealing our intellectual property, our patents, our designs, our know-how, our brand names. They're hacking into our computers, stealing information from not only corporate computers, but from government computers, and they're manipulating their currency. And for those that don't understand the impact of that, I've seen it. I've seen it. And that is, if you hold down the value of your currency artificially, you make your products artificially low-priced and kill American jobs. That's happened here in this country. And if I'm president of the United States, I'm not going to continue to talk about how important China is and how we have to get along. And I believe those things. They're very important, and we do have to get along. But I'm also going to tell the Chinese, it's time to stop. You have to play by the rules. I will not let you kill American jobs any longer.
Under the rules. Governor Huntsman.
I think it's important to note, as they would say in China, Mitt, 他不太了解这个情形. He doesn't quite understand this situation. What he is calling for would lead to a trade war. It makes for easy talk and a nice applause line, but it's far different from the reality in the U.S.-China relationship. You slap on tariffs, you talk tough like that. Of course you have. That's got to be part of it as well. But in the end, we get a tariff in return if we don't sit down and have a logical, sensible conversation. And who does that hurt most? It hurts the small businesses and the small exporters who are trying to get back on their feet in this country at a time when this nation can least afford a trade war.
I've said it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The last thing China wants is a trade war. We don't want one either.
And we'll be right.
But they sell us this much stuff. We sell them this much stuff. Tell me who doesn't want the trade war? They don't want it real bad. And we've been listening for 10 years for people talking about how we can't hold China to the rules of free and fair trade. And if I'm president, I will hold them to those rules. And we'll respect each other, but we are not going to let them just run all over us and steal our jobs.
Got to take a break. We'll be right back with the final word.
We are back and so grateful for this debate tonight, and we thought we might just end on something personal. It's Saturday night again as we meet.
So if you weren't here running for president, Governor Perry, what would you be doing on a Saturday night?
I'd probably be at the shooting range.
Instead of being shot at.
Yeah.
Speaker Gingrich?
I'd be watching the college championship basketball game.
Football game.
I mean, football game.
Thank you. I'd be doing the same thing with my family. We'd be huddled around and we'd be watching the championship game.
Afraid it's football. I love it. Yeah.
I'd be home with my family, but if they all went to bed, I'd probably read an economic textbook.
I'd be on the phone with my two boys in the United States Navy because they're a constant reminder of what is great about this nation and awesome about the emerging generation in this country.
And on that note, once again, we thank you all. Tuesday, the big primary in New Hampshire, and that is it for us here at St. Anselm College in Manchester. And we want to thank all of you in the audience and your families. Once again, your families are here, and we salute all of you who have spent your Saturday night here with us too. And we thank everybody here in New Hampshire for joining us. And stay with ABC News. We have full coverage coming up.
Thanks to all the candidates again. Stick with us, everyone at home. We're going to have full analysis coming up in just a couple minutes. We'll be right back.